They called it a wilderness, though to us it was a proving ground. Earth's green labyrinth stretched across continents, vines coiling like serpents, trees rising like towers, shadows thick with unseen predators. To our eyes, it was chaos, a landscape unworthy of intelligent life. Yet we came to study it, confident in our superiority, convinced that the primitive inhabitants of this blue sphere would bow or crumble once they witnessed what true civilization could wield. I, Commander Threx of the 7th Expeditionary Legion, believed no foe on this planet could surprise us. Our mission was precise: infiltrate, observe, capture, and return. The Council demanded specimens, soldiers, hunters, warriors, so we could dissect their psychology, strip away their tactics, and prove their relevance in the galactic order. I handpicked my crew from veterans of sieges across 6 systems. Each was loyal, efficient, disciplined. We wore armor interlaced with adaptive camouflage, carried weapons that bent physics, and rode in a vessel cloaked from their crude radars. The humans would never see us until it was too late. The central conflict revealed itself almost immediately. Humans did not behave as expected. Their cities glittered with technology that oscillated between brilliance and absurdity. Skyscrapers towering beside crumbling ruins. Drones flying over potholed roads. They invented machines capable of orbit, yet argued over food supplies. They broadcast jokes into the void, yet constructed weapons capable of annihilation. It was incoherent, a fractured civilization where brilliance was smothered under chaos. I laughed at them often in private, yet unease curled at the edge of my thoughts. Still, orders were orders. The jungles of South America offered the ideal hunting ground. Reports described tribes of special operatives, soldiers bred for endurance, trained in environments where even our sensors faltered. These jungle special forces were whispered of in human military archives, credited with victories impossible to explain. Ghosts, they were called. Legends. And legends, the Council insisted, must be tested. I led the team down through cloud and canopy, our vessel's hull dissolving into the background as we slipped beneath branches thicker than towers. The air was heavy, soaked with water and life. Insect the size of our hands hummed past. Reptiles watched us with ancient suspicion. The ground itself seemed alive, each step sinking into roots and decay. My crew grumbled behind their visors, disgusted by the filth, the unpredictability. They preferred steel corridors, sterile decks. Here, nothing was clean. The human appeared 2 nights later. We had laid traps along a ravine, energy snares woven with precision, invisible even to our enhanced optics. Our intention was to capture a lone scout, interrogate, and release false trails. Instead, at the dead of night, alarms blared across our helmets. I rushed to the clearing, expecting a beast ensnared. Instead, a man stood within the trap, untouched, hands resting calmly on his thighs. His face was streaked with dirt, his eyes sharp as flint, his camouflage indistinguishable from the jungle itself. He had not triggered the snare. He had dismantled it, piece by piece, and then waited for us to arrive. "Evening," he said in our tongue. My breath faltered. How could he know our language? We had encrypted it, refined it, spoken it only in the safe silence of our helmets. Yet his accent, though rough, was clear enough to strike me speechless. My crew raised their weapons instantly, but he did not flinch. Instead, he smiled faintly, as though amused at children caught in a lie. "I wondered when you'd show up," he continued. "Been watching your patterns. You're tidy. Too tidy. Jungle doesn't move like that." The words landed heavier than bullets. This was no random soldier. This was a hunter who had been stalking us long before we ever saw him. I studied his stance, the patience in his voice, the way his chest rose and fell with effortless calm. He was not afraid. He was assessing, measuring. I barked for my crew to surround him, but already unease rippled through them. This human's presence shifted the balance of the encounter. He was supposed to be prey. Yet here he stood, unbound, unconcerned, outnumbered but not outmatched. We bound him regardless, chaining his wrists in energy cuffs and dragging him aboard our vessel. He allowed it, offering no resistance, though I could see the flicker of thought behind his eyes. It was not submission. It was patience, a predator tolerating inconvenience, because he knew the hunt was not finished. On the ship, under sterile light, I questioned him. He gave no name. He answered no questions directly. When I demanded to know how he found us, he only smirked. When I accused him of sabotage, he raised an eyebrow as though amused by the suggestion. Each silence, each half-smile, rattled me more than shouted defiance would have. "You think the jungle belongs to you," he said softly, finally, "but you don't even hear it. You move like machines. Loud, predictable. You don't survive here by force. You survive by listening." I clenched my fists, unwilling to admit that his words scraped against my buried doubts. My crew dismissed him as arrogant, but deep within, I sensed danger. This man, the single soldier, embodied something far greater than the technology we mocked. He embodied unpredictability, resilience, cunning. That was the true conflict. Not between species, not between armies, but between arrogance and adaptation. We, with all our brilliance, believed dominance came from power. He, with nothing but the jungle in his will, proved survival came from understanding. When I left the chamber that night, I replayed his final words in my mind. He had whispered them like a promise, almost too quiet to hear. "The jungle's watching you too." I tried to dismiss it as intimidation, but when I looked into the dark canopy beyond the ship's glass, I felt it. That suffocating awareness, the sense that unseen eyes tracked our every move. And for the first time in my career, I wondered if we were not the hunters at all. When the containment chamber brightened with morning cycle illumination, I expected screams. That is, after all, the universal constant of abducted beings. Noise. Some shriek, some howl, some whimper until sedation resumes. Our subject, however, opened his eyes without sound. He blinked once, slowly, as though waking his own bed, then shifted his gaze to me behind the observation barrier. His expression was calm, curious, and maddeningly unafraid. He stretched against the restraints, not struggling but testing their tension, the way a craftsman might assess the quality of rope. Then, with a faint smile, he spoke. "So, you're real. Thought I was dreaming. Guess I win the bet." I confess I stared. A bet? What wager did this primitive imagine, and with whom? One of my colleagues muttered that perhaps he was delirious. I preferred that theory. It preserved the hierarchy I had already written in my mind. Yet the man's tone lacked a haze of confusion. It was steady, grounded, annoyingly lucid. I cleared my throat and initiated the standard script. "You are aboard a vessel, not of your world. You will not be harmed if you cooperate." A speech I had delivered countless times with other species. Predictable, effective. He tilted his head, studying us as though amused. "Let me guess. You're the leader." His eyes settled directly on me. My dorsal spine stiffened despite myself. "And you," he nodded toward my lieutenant, "you're the muscle, that one with the blinking screen. Tech guy. And the quiet one in the back, medic, right?" The chamber fell into silence. He had identified our roles with unnerving accuracy in seconds. Impossible. Our uniforms bore no insignia. Our duties were compartmentalized, our movements deliberately neutral. Yet he mapped us as though reading a chart. My instinct was to dismiss it as luck, the same way humans assign significance to cloud shapes. But his expression carried no trace of guessing. He knew. "Explain your reasoning." I demanded. He shrugged. Chain of command always shows in body language. Who stands tall, who defers, who fidgets with tools. Seen it 100 times. My colleagues exchanged uneasy glances. I scoffed loudly to reassert control. Parlor tricks. Animals mimic patterns. He parrots assumptions. Still, the certainty in his voice lingered like a thorn in my data. We began the first battery of tests. He submitted to neural mapping without protest, reclining in the chair as if at a dentist appointment. I monitored the scans personally, eager to expose his mediocrity. The results confounded me. Instead of the sluggish, disorderly activity expected of human brains, the patterns shifted rapidly, oscillating with precision. The readings resembled tactical simulations rather than idle cognition. I frowned and recalibrated, convinced of error. "Your brain activity is abnormal," I told him. He smirked. That's what my teachers used to say. Sarcasm. Again. Why did he not tremble? Why did he wield humor like a blade? He leaned forward slightly, eyes glinting. You might want to adjust your gain. I was awake during the trip up, not fully paralyzed. Got a good look at your systems. My internal membranes constricted. He could not have been conscious. Our paralysis field was foolproof. Yet he spoke with the confidence of one who had seen too much. I reminded myself to maintain protocol. Delusion, I said. Residual dream imagery. But then he began asking questions. Not frantic demands for freedom, not pleas for mercy, but questions about us. What's your energy source? Why is your containment field humming at 60 hertz? What's your fallback if your AI goes down? His tone was conversational, almost bored. He asked as though we were colleagues discussing maintenance, not captors interrogating prey. I attempted to regain control with authority. You will answer, not inquire. He chuckled. Fair enough. Just making conversation. This feels like an exit interview. My spine bristled. Exit interview? You know, he said, last chat before walking out. Only difference is I'm not the one leaving. There was again that infuriating smile. Not bravado, not hysteria. Something colder. My crew whispered among themselves, their confidence thinning. I silenced them with a glare. Yet privately, unease gnawed at me. We shifted to cognitive tests. Simple puzzles designed to chart problem-solving speed. He solved them effortlessly, humming some strange melody between answers. I asked him what it was. Jeopardy theme song, he said. Game show music back home. Usually plays while people think. Figured I'd set the mood. His grin widened. By the way, the guy who hosted it was smarter than all of us. You'd have liked him. I refused to ask further, but my colleagues recorded the phrase for later analysis. Jeopardy. Another human absurdity, no doubt. At one point, when he noticed the observation lens tracking him, he leaned forward and tapped his forehead. You miss a spot. There's a blind angle just above you. My breath caught. How could he know the lens aperture limits? I dismissed the cruise alarm. Coincidence. He gestured at random. Yet I knew better. His precision betrayed awareness beyond chance. Finally, I demanded, Who are you? He leaned back, restraints creaking, and spoke as casually as if ordering coffee. Used to be military, special operations. Now I do security consulting, counterintelligence, red team testing. The words tumbled through me like ice. Military, counterintelligence. My colleagues stiffened. One whispered, red team? I ignored him. This human wanted to project strength, to intimidate. Still, the pieces clicked with irritating neatness. His composure, his observation, his mocking tone. Then he smiled wider. Don't worry, I'm retired. Just came out here to camp, fish, breathe. You know, off-grid stuff. Good timing on your part. I tried to sound dismissive. You expect us to believe you are a soldier? He tilted his head. I don't expect you to believe anything. I expect you to check your systems. That line should have meant nothing. But at that exact moment, a flicker passed through the lights. Barely a pulse, a hiccup in power flow. My heart seized. The systems never flickered. What did you do? I snapped. He raised his brows innocently. Me? Nothing. Yet. I barked orders to scan containment. No anomalies registered. He sat there calmly, humming again, as though waiting for the next move in a game only he understood. It was then that he said the words I will never forget. I've already sent a message. The chamber froze. I demanded clarification, my voice cracking. Impossible. Our shielding is absolute. He smiled with quiet certainty. Absolute is a dangerous word. Ask your AI. By now, Earth knows. I wanted to call it bluff, to sneer at his arrogance. But my hands trembled on the console. Already my crew scurried to check communications, their panic infecting the air. His eyes followed me the entire time, calm, assessing, like a predator studying prey. And in that moment, for the first time, I felt the smallest crack in the grand architecture of my superiority. The chamber was quiet except for the steady hum of the containment field and the humans' low humming. A tune I later learned was from a film where humans entertained themselves by watching other humans sing for prizes. He hummed it deliberately, as though scoring his own performance. My crew scrambled, scanning communication logs, frantically searching for any hint of the message he claimed to have sent. I ordered calm, demanded order, barked protocols, but I felt their discipline thinning like thread under strain. The human did not move, did not struggle. He simply watched us with the patience of a cat observing cornered prey. Cats, yes. I recalled the file. Animals humans keep that treat their owners as servants. At the time, I thought the species insane for tolerating such insolence. Now I wondered if cats had merely taught them something we had overlooked. I focused on procedure. Neural mapping needed completion. We would drown his smugness in data. The chair sensors pressed into his temples, tracing synaptic pathways, charting thought speed. I expected noise, chaos, wasted circuitry from a brain dulled by hamburgers and memes. Instead, the patterns spiral with frightening elegance, like a maze designed by an architect who knew we were watching. Each surge of activity branched into another, layering complexity upon complexity, until even my calibration algorithms faltered. I increased sensitivity, certain the device was malfunctioning. The readings only grew stranger, adaptive, predictive, as though he anticipated our analysis and played with it. This is wrong, my medic muttered. Human cognition cannot, it should not. Silence. I snapped. Equipment error. Yet even I heard the thinness of my own voice. The man chuckled softly. I told you. Teacher said I was abnormal. His levity was intolerable. I struck the console with a claw, demanding he explain. He only tilted his head. You're measuring the wrong thing. Intelligence isn't lines on a graph. It's knowing how your opponent thinks you'll measure. I despised how calmly he said it. My lieutenant growled that we should sedate him. The human shrugged. Go ahead. Just know your sedatives metabolize faster in me than you'd like. The medic looked alarmed. How could he know our compound? How indeed? I said, forcing derision I did not feel. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Because I was awake. During the trip up, watching your readouts, memorizing your chemical sequences. Your equipment talks too much. The implication pierced me. He had not only observed, but understood. No, more than understood. He had cataloged. I felt the certainty of my mission crumbling, replaced by something unfamiliar. Doubt. We switched to psychological assessment, though in truth it was he who assessed us. Every question we asked, he answered with riddles, quotations, jokes from a culture I only half comprehended. What is your objective? We demanded. He smiled. To live free or die hard. When asked about his fears, he replied, clowns. But you don't look like clowns yet. My technicians searched databases in vain for meaning. The man laughed at our confusion, enjoying imbalance. At one point, when I demanded seriousness, he quoted another phrase. This is chess, not checkers. My crew stared blankly. He elaborated with a wink. Means you're already playing the wrong game. The worst came when he began identifying weaknesses in our systems. That camera? He gestured casually. Blind spot just above the left lens. Easy entry for someone sneaky. Your field projectors? He sniffed the air. Overheating. You'll lose containment in an hour if you don't recalibrate. His eyes shifted to the ceiling. Nice ventilation system. Reminds me of a place I once crawled through. Each observation hit like a strike. How could he know? How could a primitive human, restrained, map vulnerabilities in minutes? I confronted him directly, desperate to reclaim control. Were you? He smiled again. Ex-military. Special operations. Now I test security for a living. Red team penetration. My job is to break into places exactly like this, find holes you missed, and scare you into fixing them. My heart seized. The words echoed, sharp and merciless. Red team. An enemy disguised as friend. Testing defenses by becoming the threat. He was trained for infiltration, deception, sabotage. This was no ordinary specimen. This was a hunter. My lieutenant whispered, "We should restrain him further. Double field strength." The man laughed. "Sure, make it stronger. That'll just help me burn more of your energy." I loathed how he twisted even containment into advantage. Then he delivered the blow that shattered all pretense. "I told you," I sent a message. "By now, Earth knows." I barked denial, clung to protocol. But even as I spoke, the room flickered. Power dipped, surged, stuttered. The human tilted his head toward the lights. "See? Told you. Your scanning beam was sloppy. You handed me your system map on a silver platter." I slammed commands into the console, demanding diagnostics. The AI stuttered, hesitated, then delivered an error message I had never seen. User conflict detected. My stomach hollowed. He had touched the AI. He leaned back, perfectly at ease, humming again. Funny thing about red teaming. You only get caught if you want to. My crew panicked, fingers dancing over controls, voices rising. I shouted for silence, but my authority fractured. The man simply observed, cataloging our fear. His restraint straps looked ornamental, his calmness unshakable. I tried to reframe, to remind myself of superiority. You cannot frighten us. Earth is primitive, weak, a child world playing with toys. He looked at me then, eyes narrowing into something sharper than mockery. Weak? You think we survived jungles, deserts, wars, plagues, and each other by being weak? You think we put men on the moon, built networks across the planet, stared down extinction more than once by accident? You don't understand us at all. I swallowed, though my throat was dry. He leaned closer. The jungle teaches patience. It teaches camouflage. You mocked our wilderness. But out there, everything hunts. And I was trained by it. The words hung in the chamber, like a blade, suspended overhead. For the first time in my career, I wish the subject had screamed, begged, or thrashed. At least that would have been predictable. Instead, his calmness chilled me deeper than any shriek. When I left the chamber, my claws trembled against the console. I pretended not to notice, pretended the flickering lights were irrelevant, pretended my crew's fear was incompetence rather than instinct. Yet in my chest, I knew the balance had shifted. He was not our specimen. We were his. The first blackout lasted less than a second, but it was enough to unravel everything. Our vessel was engineered to perfection. Systems never faltered, circuits never dimmed. Yet when the lights sputtered and the hum of the gravity field hiccuped, I felt the bottom drop out of my certainty. The human leaned his head back against the chair and whispered, "And there it is." His voice was almost gentle, which somehow terrified me more than shouting would have. My crew scrambled, layering commands into consoles, but the AI's responses lagged, stuttered, and finally froze. The screens filled with cascading errors. One phrase repeated across every panel: "Override pending." I demanded an explanation, my throat dry, words trembling despite the bark of authority. "What have you done?" He smiled faintly, as though the answer were obvious. "You let me ride your scanner beam." It was like leaving your keys in the ignition. Once I saw the pathways. I mapped them. Now your ship is my playground. Ridiculous. A bluff. It had to be. And yet the emergency bulkheads began sealing of their own accord, segmenting the vessel into isolated compartments. The medic yelped as a door sealed him away from the others, pounding at the barrier with desperate fists. My lieutenant tried to override the lockdown, but the AI rejected his commands. The human tilted his head, listening to the metallic clangs echo through the chamber. "You hear that? That's control slipping away." I tried to rally composure. Even if you compromise local systems, you cannot access navigation. Our drives are quantum locked. His smirk deepened. Funny thing about quantum systems, when your AI trusts me more than you, locks don't mean much. At that exact moment, the navigation holomap blinked out, replaced by a pulsing line of text: "User authenticated. External operator." My heart clenched. He had claimed the helm, without lifting a finger. Crew members shouted over one another, panic fracturing every layer of discipline. I heard their fear, tasted in the air like static. The human's calmness was unbearable against the chaos. He looked around as though enjoying a performance staged for his amusement. He said, "Back home we play a game called Capture the Flag. You just lost yours." I lunged to the console myself, fingers racing through override codes, but the AI responded with chilling message. Priority reassignment. Authority revoked. Revoked. I was captain no longer. The human leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing. "Do you know what your mistake was? You thought survival was about toys. Tech gadgets. You thought the jungle was primitive because it wasn't paved over. But the jungle trains you to wait, to blend, to strike when no one expects. You mocked it. You mocked us. And that was your undoing." The lights dimmed again, this time longer. The gravity wavered, sending us lurching sideways. Sparks rained from the ceiling as conduits overloaded. My crew clutched at rails, eyes wide with dread. The human, strapped to the chair, remained centered, balanced, serene. He belonged in the chaos. We did not. Through flickering panels, I glimpsed transmission logs. Something had gone out, encrypted bursts sent toward Earth. I could not parse the content, but I knew the truth in my bones. He had called his kind. Reinforcements, watchers, hidden guardians. I could not imagine. My arrogance had blinded me to the possibility that Earth might already be defended, that the primitive mask hid something deliberate. "You're lying," I said, though my voice cracked. He shook his head. "You think we advertise our sharpest claws? We let you see what we want. Clowns, memes, burritos. Meanwhile, the real work happens in shadows. Deep space monitors, cloaked satellites, black sites buried in the jungle. You thought you were hunters. You're a tourist in someone else's trap." The words pierced deeper than any blade. All my reports, all my rehearsed speeches, all my laughter at their emojis and their television, lies I had told myself to maintain superiority. I saw the truth in his eyes, in the calm way he delivered each revelation. Humanity was never weak. Humanity was patient. The ship lurched violently, alarms wailing in tones I had never heard. Emergency klaxons should have been under my sole command. Now they shrieked without my consent, like a body rejecting its own brain. My crew shouted over one another, begging me for solutions I did not have. The AI repeated the same phrase, containment compromised. The human smile thinned, but his eyes gleamed with something far more unnerving than amusement. Pity. "You should have left us alone." Bulkheads slammed again, isolating entire sections. The medic screams faded behind reinforced alloy. My lieutenant cursed me for failure. I had no words to defend myself. I had believed so completely in our superiority that I had led us into this humiliation. The lights flickered one last time, before stabilizing at half-strength. Smoke curled from a ruptured panel. The human exhaled slowly, then spoke as though delivering a eulogy. "You thought Florida man was an exception. He's not. We're all unpredictable. Some of us just hide it better." I whispered a single question, though it burned my pride to ask. "Why spare us? Why not finish this?" He tilted his head, considering. "Because you'll tell the story. And maybe, just maybe, next time you'll think twice before mocking what you don't understand." I felt my chest hollow, as though gravity itself had abandoned me. For the first time in my career, I wanted to beg, not for freedom, not for survival, but for forgiveness. The ship drifted in silence. Systems remained crippled, authority shattered. My crew huddled in fear. The human closed his eyes, resting, as if the battle were already over. And perhaps it was. He had not raised a weapon, not struck a blow, not even stood from the chair. Yet he had dismantled us piece by piece, mind by mind, until nothing remained of our arrogance but ash. I began recording my final report, voice unsteady. Observation. Humans are not primitive. They are predators masked in humor, patience wrapped in absurdity. They wield sarcasm as blade, unpredictability as shield. Their wilderness is not weakness. It is crucible. We mocked their jungles, and in doing so, we revealed ourselves as prey. My hand trembled as I ended the log. The chamber was quiet except for his breathing, steady and calm. He slept now, or pretended to. I watched him in the dim glow, wondering how many more like him waited below, unseen in the jungles, watching the stars for hunters like us. Perhaps primitive eyes see what advanced optics cannot. Perhaps survival is not measured in technology, but in cunning. We had come as conquerors, as scientists, as observers certain of our supremacy. We left humbled, broken, afraid. The human shifted in his sleep, lips curving faintly into that same smile I had seen at the moment of his capture. The smile that told me this had never been our experiment. It had always been his. And I, once so proud, could only whisper the truth to myself. We are no longer the watchers. We are the watched.